Hi everybody. For years I have given people the advice that when you're cycling in a new tank, you can simply take the biomaterial like the sponge filter out of another tank and give it a good swish in your new tank, and that introduction of bacteria may not instantly cycle your new tank, but it will seed it with enough bacteria that your tank will be good to go and ready to put fish in it, and within a day or two your tank will be fully cycled. Now, I have to say I can no longer give that advice. I've done a few experiments, not only on this tank that is now fully cycled in, but I was doing some experiments on my other tank in the other room, and as I said, I can no longer, in good conscience, give that advice. So now we're going to talk about why.
Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not going to stop recommending that people take the biomaterial out of an established tank and give it a good swish in your new tank to help speed the process up and to help start your new cycle in your new tank. What I am going to stop doing, however, is telling people that this will establish the cycle in their tank almost immediately or overnight. In a couple of tests I've done in the 2 or 3 tanks that I've been sort of messing around with, trying to see how fast I can do this and what process goes through and everything, the fastest I've done it like that has been about 10 days, and on average it takes about 2 weeks in order to do it. Now that's still much faster than having the tank cycle naturally. If you were to set up in a tank, put a source of ammonia in there, fish food or ammonium chloride. I do actually have some liquid ammonia. We're going to talk about that in just a minute. That's what I've been using in this tank. And that does change things a little bit because of the way I'm putting the ammonia in there. But if you set up a tank and you put an ammonia source in there and you just sit back and do nothing, you don't put filter swishings in there, you do nothing. Just put some ammonia source in the tank and stand back. That tank will cycle itself in. The bacteria we need to grow in that tank is just ubiquitous. It's like algae or yeast. It's just in the air. So it will get in your tank. Your tank will cycle in, provided there's a source of ammonia. And that whole process takes anywhere from the minimum of about a month to maybe 6 weeks. And then if the conditions are less than favorable, it may take even longer than that. But you're looking at least a month to 6 weeks before your tank cycles naturally. So if you can speed that process up to being ready to go in just 10 days, that's still very much accelerating how quickly you can get a tank cycled in, but it's far from instant. And it's certainly not like an overnight type situation like for what I was always suggesting and always recommending. I've told countless people that if you give that sponge a good swish in your new tank, you're done. You can walk away and start putting fish in the tank. So on that note, you may be able to start putting fish in the tank, because remember, when I set the tank up and I got these cycles started, what I did was I started by introducing a fairly significant amount of ammonia. I put 2 to 3 parts per million ammonia right off the bat in the tank and started allowing that to be dealt with. If you were to set up a tank that was nice and fresh and brand new and had no ammonia in it, and you put a guppy or 2 in there, you wouldn't suddenly have 2 parts per million ammonia. You would have a couple of guppies producing a very small amount of ammonia. So if you swish the filter around in there for a little bit and you put some nitrifying bacteria in the tank and you got this process started, would it be enough to handle a couple of little guppies right out of the gate? Maybe. I would probably even say probably. But that's not what I consider cycled. When I tell people your tank is cycled, I mean it's got enough nitrifying bacteria that you can have a fully stocked tank and the nitrogen cycle will handle the waste of a fully stocked tank. It's not the same as you can now begin putting fish in the tank. That's a different scenario than your tank is cycled. And what I'm trying to do is have my tank cycled. So when I go get some fish, I can come home and I can put fish in the tank. I'm not going to worry about putting 1 or 2 in and waiting, letting the tank get caught up, putting another 2 or 3 in, letting the tank get caught up. I'm going to get the tank fully cycled and ready to go, and then I'm going to put the fish that I want to put in there. And I did that, and it took me about 10 days of doing it. Again, I was using ammonium chloride, and just this morning I added some more ammonium chloride because the tank is now now dealing with it very quickly. If I'm putting 2 parts per million ammonia in there, that's gone in about 2 days. And so continuing to do that is going to keep fortifying and building up those nitrogen eating bacterial colonies. And so when I am ready to put fish in the tank, it will have a fully functional nitrogen cycle that's capable of handling the fish I put in the tank. In fact, we're already to the point where, I don't know if you noticed in the intro sequence, we're already starting to get the brown diatom algae growing on everything. And that's a good sign that your tank is beginning to develop and mature. So my cycle is ready on that tank. I could go ahead and fully stock that tank tomorrow and I shouldn't have any problems. So that's not quite the same when I say your tank is cycled versus you can now start putting fish in there. So under those circumstances, you probably could, if you were to take some biomaterial from another tank, and I'm not talking about taking the sponge from another tank and putting it in that filter. That is pretty much a cycled filter going in a new tank. I'm talking about taking the biosponge out of an existing tank, swishing it around in the water in the new tank, basically cleaning it, you know, in your new tank, and then putting the biofilter back in the original tank. And all you're doing is seeding the bacteria. You're just putting some bacteria in the new tank, and that will get it going. It's kind of, you think of like a starter culture if you're making yeast bread or something like that, and you need to put that starter bacteria in the tank. You still need to have food for it. You still need to have favorable conditions for it to grow and blossom and all that kind of stuff. But you put that starter culture in there and you accelerate that whole process. And again, you can whittle it down to maybe 10 days or 2 weeks, which is very, very much faster than the whole process would normally take. But it's not instant and it's not overnight or anything. So I definitely have to sort of revamp my advice in the future when I do that. But that's been the results of my experiences. If you've done something different, if you've used the liquid bottled bacteria, I tried that one time in the past and I don't know if I did it right or whatever. Maybe I'll experiment with that again in the future. But if you've got experience with that, let me know. I've heard mixed bags about buying the bottled bacteria. That seems to be almost dependent on where you buy it, whether it got too warm, whether you pre-oxygenate it. It seems like it's kind of hit or miss to me. My go-to thing has always been taking a filter out of another tank, or if you don't have another tank, I've always recommended you can go to your local fish store and ask them for a bag of filter squeezings. Most fish stores will take a sponge filter, they'll wring it out into a bag, and they'll give you that mucky, nasty water. You bring it home, pour it in your tank, and that's your starter culture. And again, the only way I'm really going to modify my advice is by saying your tank's not necessarily fully cycled at that point. You still need to monitor it. You still need to watch your ammonia levels and see whether they come down, how quickly they come down, and maybe begin by slowly introducing stock into the tank and building it up from there. Your tank is not cycled when you do that. It's not just good to go. You can't just do that swish and walk away. I got to stop telling people to do that. So that's my 2 cents. As I said, I'd be interested to hear your opinions, your thoughts, your experiences, whatever. Don't forget to check out my other channel, Dan's Outdoors and More. I'm going to be posting some more stuff over there real soon. There's a link down below. You can also check out the link on the banner and click on that. Either way, make sure you're subscribed over there. Make sure you're subscribed here. Don't forget, this one is my 125-gallon tank. I'll see you real soon in the next one.